Hi, my name is Susan Berry. I'm the founder and managing partner of Brown Goertz Co. We are a state tax advisory firm, and we represent businesses that are being audited by the Texas Comptroller for sales and use tax. In today's video, I want to talk about use tax. What is it? Why is it important? And how do you stay compliant? Many people are not aware of use tax. They run their businesses, they charge their customers sales tax, they remit that sales tax to the comptroller, and they're pretty unaware of what use tax is. Use tax is the tax that you pay on the things that you buy. So when you charge your customer sales tax, that is sales tax. When you buy something from someone else, you are paying use tax. They are charging you sales tax, but that is your tax to use that item in the state of Texas. And I hear lots of times, first, I hear from many of our clients who, upon their first audit, say, I didn't know I could be audited for sales tax. And then somewhere during the process of the audit, a lot of them will say, I thought this was a sales tax audit, because we will be looking at things like expenses and assets, and they're confused at why the comptroller is looking at their expenses and their assets, the things that they bought, if it's a sales tax audit. And so one of the things that a lot of our clients learn through their first audit is that they are not paying tax. They're not paying the use tax appropriately on the things that they buy. And it depends on the industry. Some industries are much more complicated than other industries. So for instance, contractors, the construction industry, very complicated rules depending on is the job residential or commercial? Is it new construction? Is it remodel? Is there a contract, and is that contract lump sum, or is it a separated contract? Because all of those twists and turns in the law determine not only how you tax your customer, but how you, whether or not you pay tax on the materials and the consumables and the tools and the things that are used for that job. So for today's video, I want to keep it really simple. Use tax is, for all intent and purposes, let me give you an example. Let's say, okay, so Amazon is a big one. Many years ago, prior to 2012, Amazon didn't charge tax. And then there was the Wayfair, the South Dakota versus Wayfair court case that went to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court found for South Dakota and that Wayfair should be charging and remitting use tax or sales tax to South Dakota for sales into South Dakota, even though Wayfair was not located in South Dakota. And so that set off a whole flurry of other issues that people who have multi-state sales have to deal with. But more importantly, it got companies like Amazon and Wayfair and some of those other large retail distributor type companies to start charging sales tax in the appropriate states and remitting to those states. So however, you may find sometimes you buy something. So most of the time you'll buy something on Amazon, there will be tax on it because Amazon sold you that thing that you bought. But sometimes you'll notice there is no tax on the thing that you bought on Amazon. And that's because it's not being sold to you by Amazon. The seller is using Amazon as its sales engine, if you will. And that seller is not permitted to collect and remit sales tax to the state of Texas. And so when you go through an audit, the auditors are going to look at your purchases. They're going to look at the things that you bought. They're also going to look at general expenses, phone bills, utilities, repairs, car maintenance, entertainment. I mean, they just telephone bills. They look at look at everything, office supplies, they look at everything to make sure that you're paying tax appropriately. And if you're shopping at Walmart or Costco or Office Depot, yes, you're paying tax. But if you're buying things on Amazon or from some obscure vendor that's not a Costco or a Walmart, then that auditor doesn't have confidence that you paid tax on it, because if that vendor's from out of state and they're not permitted in the state of Texas to collect and remit sales tax, then there won't be any tax on that purchase. And you are responsible for remitting the tax on that purchase to the comptroller. And a lot of people find this out during their first audit. It's usually a shock. It's usually upsetting because they didn't know. And one of the first responses I'll get is, well, isn't that person responsible for charging me sales tax? And maybe, maybe not. It depends. It depends if they're an out-of-state vendor. No, they don't necessarily have to be. If they don't have nexus in Texas, they don't have to be permitted to collect and remit sales tax to Texas. Or there are vendors out there that just don't know. They don't know that what they do is taxable and that they should be charging tax. Or, I mean, it can even get even more, there's vendors that don't know anything about sales tax. They opened a business, they're selling whatever they sell, and they're not even aware. And so what the comptroller, what the legislature has said and the comptroller enforces, is that if you buy something for your use in the state of Texas, you owe use tax on that. And if the vendor did not charge you use tax on it or sales tax on it, then you are responsible for remitting that use tax directly to the comptroller. And how you do that is on your sales tax return. And if you will imagine a sales tax return, in fact, you don't have to imagine, let me share my screen and open a sales tax return. Okay, you should be able to see that. And so you'll see that we have total Texas sales here, taxable sales here, and this line, lots of people, when I ask them, oh, so you know that line on your sales tax return that says taxable purchases? That's where that goes. And a lot of people say, oh yeah, I wondered what that was for. Well, so let's take the example. Say you buy a printer online, and it's a $500 printer. And you are in Texas and you purchased it from some vendor in Georgia, and that vendor ships that printer to you, and there's no tax on it because for that vendor, it's an out-of-state sale. So they're not required to collect and remit tax to Georgia. And they're also not permitted to collect and remit tax in Texas. So there's no Texas sales tax on that invoice. And so your responsibility is to report that $500 in this line right here, this taxable purchases line. And what that will do is that will add it to your taxable sales, and then your total amount subject to sales tax includes not only your sales, your taxable sales, but also any taxable purchases that you made that you should have paid tax on, but that you didn't. And then it'll calculate the tax for you, and you will, in effect, end up remitting that use tax directly to the comptroller. I highly recommend that if you do begin doing this, that you take a copy of the receipt of the thing that you purchased and keep it with your copy of the sales tax return. Now, you don't have to send that into the comptroller when you file your sales and use tax return every month or every quarter. But in the event of an audit, an auditor is going to ask you what purchases you reported. And if you can't tell them what the purchases were, the very specific, who was the vendor, what was the date, how much was the amount, what did you buy, and that really needs to be, they're going to ask for proof, a receipt or an invoice. If you can't prove that, then they're going to say, well, thank you very much for the money. They're not going to give it back to you. And then they are going to audit your expenses and your assets. And they may come across that purchase again, and they'll see that there was no tax on it, and they're going to tax you. So if you don't keep appropriate documentation, you'll end up paying tax on that purchase twice. So I recommend that you keep copies both digitally and hard copy of your sales and use tax returns and all of the backup that supports that return. It'll just make your life so much easier in an audit. And so that's my 2 cents on what use tax is and how you stay compliant. If anyone is interested in talking with me further, if you have any questions about this issue or any other Texas sales and use tax issue, please feel free to reach out to us. You can go to our website, bgc-tax.com. You can comment to this YouTube video, and we'll get back to you just as soon as we can. We'd love to help you. Thank you and have a great day. Bye.